what we're really talking about when people are like, what is the class? Like, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about moving the physical body to get this gunk that is conditioned and coded in our systems out of our body while we are reflecting on our own response to feeling and then deciding if we want to express it in a safe space.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. D. Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we are still in Sophie month.
Yes, we are.
So we get to celebrate that. And we're going to talk about all things intuition, and I think like the eclectic life you've led this month is a very eclectic month.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense to me. It seems to make perfect chronological sense. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely never been a boring person. I have a lot going on at all times, and I always have. It's not just because I have 3 kids and 3 jobs right now. I've always been this way. When I was 16 years old, I had 3 jobs. I worked constantly when I wasn't in school. I've always been a part of a lot of different groups, a lot of different people. I have a lot of different interests, and that's what fuels me. And the more that I've actually learned about my human design, the more it all makes sense. That is who I am. That's how I'm made up. So I'm just living in alignment of that, just being my true self, honoring that.
100%. If anybody knows you personally, they will know that, what is it in the human design thing? The reason you refer back to that is the way you described it to me is you're sitting in the passenger seat and kind of like flying along as life leads you. Is that the thing? That's
one of the many things that makes up me and my personality. There's a lot of different aspects. The point of human design as a whole, as far as I'm concerned and what I can gather, is that the more you know about yourself, the more you can live in alignment with those aspects of who you are, and you don't try and be like other people. So, if you're a type of person that needs to have a lot of alone time to recharge, then you honor that. You don't ignore it, or you don't just try and force yourself to go out every night because that is what other people are doing and you're 21 and that. So it's all about just really figuring out all the different nuanced aspects of who you are and not fighting against that. Really honoring and leaning into those things that make you you, and then owning it and understanding more about like who your partner is. You and I, for example, are the same as a whole. We're actually the same, not sign, energy. We're the same energy. So, whether you're a projector, a manifesting generator, a generator like you and I, the kids are manifesting generators, Noah's a projector. Like, human design allows you to recognize more of who you are and honor more of who you are. So it's not just astrology. It's a bunch of different ways of honoring your energetic being as a unique being.
Yeah. Well, you're a very unique being, my love.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to a review that is really old.
Let's do it.
It's 2 years old. And I think it speaks to what you're talking about right now a little bit because of how broad the interests are and the topics that we end up talking about. So this review is from a long time ago, 2 years, and the person's name is spelled Asad, Asadh, and it just says love. This is a great podcast filled with authentic people who give authentic information. Sophie and Adi are 2 powerhouse people who are passionate about empowering and igniting others to take control of their lives and to love the lives they live. This comes through in their podcast. I'm a subscriber for life.
Oh, I love that.
So that was 2 years ago, and hopefully you're still a subscriber, because
Yes.
you got to reach out to us now
and get a special package.
which was not on the books 2 years ago.
It's true. I love that you pulled that out.
Yeah.
So let us know, DM us, send us an email, contact us through the website, ignited.com, and we will get you a special little package.
Yes.
I'm going to read a quote. This is the quote that I read in my yoga class this Sunday. I'm teaching now every Sunday in April, and I probably will continue that if quarantine continues, which it sounds like it's going to. I really like that Sunday morning slot, 9:30 a.m. Even if you can't catch it live, we'll put a link to the live kick in the show notes. Even if you can't catch it live, you can still listen to it, watch it for up to a week after. And that's what I've been suggesting to people. Even if you can't catch it live, even if you can't be there at 9:30 on the dot Pacific time, you get that recording for the next week to watch as many times as you want.
Yeah.
Put it on and let it be a spiritual awakening. Let it be a spiritual connection. Let it be a time to connect to your highest self. Journal, write, cry, scream, laugh, feel joy, feel ecstasy, like all the things that come through and that you're needing to express and feel during that time. Let that be a way to get there. And just know that it's there for 7 days, and then the next week's comes out. And if you book all the classes together, you get a discount. So link will be in the show notes. It's on Live Kick Studio website, and then you just go to my name and then you see the classes I teach. So the quote is, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion."
Speaks a little bit to what you just mentioned about not going with people's desires for you or society's kind of projections of who you need to be, but rather beating to your own drum, or being able to kind of be free in that way.
Yeah, and even more specifically to this time of quarantine, to this time of upheaval, uncomfortableness, the feeling of being trapped. That's a thought. That's a way of being within yourself. If you can, within yourself, become so free and inspire yourself to stay motivated in whatever ways, or not. There's no pressure right now to perform, but finding that freedom within yourself is a mindset. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of being. It's a way of treating yourself. The days that I feel more free are the days that I decide that I'm going to feel more free. And the days that I feel trapped and bored and, it's Groundhog's Day, rah, rah, rah. That's up to me. That's a choice to see it that way. It's a perspective.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I feel like in the past, I could rely on some outside motivation. And I think the thing that's so hard for me right now is it has to all come from me. Like, there isn't much, because everybody's on the edge, or everybody's just one moment away from not losing it, but just showing you their anxiety and their frustration. So
our baseline is just different for anxiety. I feel like we're like
ours
in life, our entire society's baseline is like up a few notches.
Yeah, exactly. And so in everyday life, if I bring it 70% or 75%, I can normally kind of draw on energy from other things that are going on. Just outside, just being outside and going out and seeing other people jogging, or going to the store and interacting with other people. Right now, everywhere I draw energy from, not everything, but a lot of where I'm drawing energy from is anxious and stressed. And so I have to compensate.
Yeah, I think also for me, I've been finding ways to get it from nature. Being quiet, going outside and listening to the birds chirp, and just taking like a little bit of time to soak in nature. She is thriving right now. There is nothing more inspiring than nature in the springtime. Everything's blooming. Everything smells good. Everything's really bright colored. All the flowers are really bright. I think that's a place to draw inspiration from more than anything. If we can't go to other people, like just
I try to get a little bit of time outside.
I think we could be better at that. I think we should go out more often and just like go for really long walks. It's been raining lately, so it's hard. Yeah,
it's also so yesterday Alex and I went to the store, and like you walk outside and everybody's wearing masks.
No, that's not fun. I don't mean that.
No, but even down the street.
Yeah.
People are like walking around. It's
different.
It's hard to not have a reminder that things are off. And so the reason I'm just saying that is
we all are struggling.
There are all these different factors, right? So what you're talking about, it almost applies to what I talk about in the book, The Abstinence Myth. There's like biology, psychology, environment, and spirituality. I feel like my psychology is pretty strong.
Right.
I'm at like 80%. I'm not one of those people who gives myself 100 frequently. So I'm at 80%. I'm not at 90, but I'm doing really well. But then the environmental pressures are there. The biological pressures, right? The more cortisol that gets released in my blood, the more adrenaline because of some anxiety and fear. It's like, remember you were saying the other day when you got your period, you were saying, oh, now I realize why I was acting the way that I was acting the couple of days before because you were more stressed. For all of us, there's biological little hormonal and neurotransmitter pieces that are being released right now.
And everything's more heightened. So like my period cramps this time around, sorry, you guys know if you listen, there's no TMI on this podcast, but my period cramps were so much more intense than normal. I felt them for a week leading up to it. I kept being like, man, my stomach hurts. Right. And then the first, second, and third day of my period, when usually it's like maybe the first day, it was so intense that I could barely walk straight even yesterday, which was day 3. Yeah,
you were really in pain.
It's
like
just
I've never seen you pull out the heating pad in like 2 years or something.
In the middle of recording a podcast, I had to get the heating pad and put it on me. I'm like sweating during the podcast, but I had to because my pain was so intense. I had to have Tylenol.
So that's what I'm saying is
everything is more intense for everyone.
And I think I want to give people like some freedom to say, look, yes, it's a matter of perspective. Just also recognize with everything from the outside right now pushing a certain perspective, it is going to be more of a struggle to bring this different way of looking at the world. I think going outside and being in nature is a beautiful way of doing that, particularly because nature is thriving right now, whereas all humans are suffering. Mm-hmm. So by going out and hanging out with a tree,
it's a reminder.
Tree is happy. Least pollution, the least people fucking with it. Like
life
the trees
is
are having
continuing,
the best time.
And life is continuing. It's inspiring to get outside. I like feeling small. I said this on the podcast with Melissa today. I love to feel small in this world. Me and my problems are jack shit compared to the world at large. The universe doesn't care. It's going to keep on living, keep on beating, keep on creating. It's going to keep on creating oxygen. It's going to keep on living. That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
To just chill out a little bit.
Totally. Yeah.
You know?
So I think that speaks to me to the quote. It speaks to me to the thing you were talking about, the human design.
And I also love that Taryn, our guest today, she created a class called The Class. And her whole thing is about feeling your fucking feelings.
Yeah.
Let yourself feel your feelings. Let yourself express them through movement. Let the feeling come up. And instead of running from it, sit in it.
Yep. Listen, I did a podcast episode on the monster that you're running away from and how you need to stop letting those monsters guide your path. People love this
podcast. Go back and listen to this monster podcast a few weeks ago on a Friday.
I think it's probably like a month ago. It's a Friday episode that I did. And I want to let you know that Sophie and I, again, we're always looking to serve more. We're looking to do more. We're going to go into the Saturday, April 25th couples or relationship online support group that we have. So in case you guys haven't heard, Ignited has opened up so you get 2 free weeks of all of our online support groups for anybody who wants it. No commitment. Just let us know after 2 weeks if you want to cancel. And when cancel, you'll get nothing charged. We now have 8. By the time this comes out, we might have 10 groups already. And pretty much every day of the week is covered other than Sunday. So Monday through Saturday, sometimes multiple times a day, we have groups. Everything from trauma, anxiety, depression, addiction, etc. We have 2 relationship groups a week. One of them is Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We'll have the link and everything for you in the show notes. But Sophie and I are going to get on it to talk because one of the things I'm hearing a lot about, and I'm sure you're hearing about a lot too, Soph, people are trapped in their relationships for better or worse, right? We know some people who just started dating when this thing hit and have ended up spending more time together in this single episode in the last month than most couples spend almost in the first year of dating. And so we're going to come to you and we're going to talk a lot about how that's having an impact, and you can come ask us questions. We're going to be with Tina Conkin, who's the relationship coach on that group. Normally, it's going to be amazing. We'll give you the link so you can get a benefit from that, because because it's so hard and the environmental pressure is so high right now to be anxious and stressed out, one of the reasons we opened it up is we wanted Ignited to be the safe place where at least once a day you can go and listen to some support, listen to some help, get guidance from a coach directly. So hopefully that'll help you.
Yep. And go listen to this amazing podcast with Taryn Toomey, who is from the class. She created it. She's the founder of it. And just know she has an app. You can hit up my class on Sunday. You can hit up her app and get, streaming classes. She's brilliant, amazing. We get into some really deep trauma that we both experience with our own mothers and some strong boundaries and a lot of people ask for this information. What do you do with parents or family members that you just are hitting a roadblock with and you just can't go forward? I've experienced this in my own life with every member of my family now. I've had to create a hard boundary and then slowly let them back in when the timing was right and we've both matured. So we share a very similar story there. Head over there to listen. We're going right now. We love you. Thank you, and be well.
See you on the other side.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com. Okay, guys, I am back to the interview section. I'm here with the lovely Taryn Toomey, and I'm so excited to have you here today to really go deep, to drop in together, to talk about the things that not everyone talks about, but which ignites me. And that's why this podcast is called Ignited, is because we love talking to people about the things that ignite us as individuals. And this is my birthday month. And intuitive movement has been something that has really spoken to me, healed me, is continuing to heal me. And I couldn't imagine someone better to speak to on this topic. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more?
Thank you. It's a real honor to chat with you, and happy birthday month.
Thank you.
Really into that jam. Let's just extend it out 30 days.
Yep.
So I'm Taryn Toomey. I created the class, which is a movement-based practice, which really, you summarized it. We have not called it intuitive movement, but that's really what we're doing. It's a system that's meant to repeat one movement for an entire song. To notice in one way, you asked me to introduce myself here, and I'm just going to ramble on now.
Get it, girl. Get it, girl.
I'm just going to tell you what the class is. You repeat one movement for an entire song, close your eyes, and notice what your mind does around the feeling in your body. Understanding that your mind is simply an organ and is creating thought. And if you observe the thought about the feeling and allow yourself to actually feel it, there will be information in that feeling. So it's music driven. So we use music and then just repetitive motion and then awareness of thought. And we first start by creating a fire in the body, especially if there's people that don't understand the word or the essence of what the understanding of spirit or soul or consciousness or any of these words that kind of float in one ear and out the other, because it's like I don't even know how to grasp the unseen. The idea is to first ignite the fire and get the body get you embodied, which means in the body. So that's really, there's a lot of sound and expression. We hang out in the feeling and notice if there's other things that are going on in the feeling, and then we invite people to make sound. So sometimes people are and like crying, and it sounds crazy, and it's embarrassing for me to say it sometimes, which is not so, because it's, but it's the thing, when you're in it, it's much easier to just do it. And when you talk about it, it doesn't really resonate the same.
Well, I think most things that are cathartic and healing aren't pretty.
Yeah. And like, that's the interesting thing. What we talk about in class is like, you hear the word pretty, and there's a relationship that people have to a word, right? And we identify it as being good or bad or right or wrong. I only want to be this and not that. And what we're working to experience is the vast amount of different relationships we have to words and feelings. And then if there's resistance to one of them, if you hear or feel one of them, and then you lock up, or you go into your head, or you go into the intellectual kind of intellectualization of it, you're not allowing yourself to just move through states of feeling. You're resisting the feeling, and then essentially not experiencing the human condition in the kind of vast, magnificent way it could be experienced.
And how did you stumble upon that?
I started it about 8 years ago in the basement of my building, really in reflection to heal myself. At the time, I didn't really know. So when you're talking about intuitive, like, here it is. Like, I can look back now and connect dots to things of why. But in the time, it just was like there was something inside me that just kept saying, like, just keep doing this. Like, it was almost like you're giving birth to something, and like the baby's going to come out, and you can't even fight it or breathe. That kind of feeling. Because what I realize now is that it's my dharma. I'm in the purpose of my soul. I didn't then. I've now realized it even more with what's all been going on in the world right now. But and that's only just from the way, at least it feels for me. And so anyway, how did I stumble upon it? Worked in corporate fashion for a couple years. Was just always moving, young, sports, rock climbing, volleyball, lacrosse, all the things. I would sprint outside when I was frustrated. I'd listen to music. Like, it was my job from an early age. So I knew those two things were always my medicine. And combining them really created the emotional kind of awakening or response that I was looking to help process. If I was feeling really sad, I would listen to something sad after I would run, and then allow the music to invoke the feeling that I was trying to process. So I didn't know that's what was going on, but I can reflect and understand it. Then jumped ship, did a yoga teacher training, spent some time down in Peru doing different types of work down there. What
kind of yoga did you study, or with who?
I studied with a woman, Allison West, from Yoga Union. So it was alignment based. I really studied by practicing with, but not under the kind of teacher-student hand in the formal way of teacher training, with Skylar Grant over at Kula Yoga, and Allison Novi, who's now Allison Sinatra, and this other woman, Annie Piper, who I love. And then Thomas Droge, he's a Qigong teacher, but I would practice with him, and Kevin Courtney. So those were really like my core kind of people that I would practice with, but I trained under Allison West. And then just kind of hit the streets and started teaching, and then got moved to Boston about 2 months after I started teaching. And I thought I was going to go back to fashion. And then because of that move, I just started teaching up there because they didn't have a corporate office, and moved back to New York 10 days before I had my first daughter. A woman named Mama Kia passed away. That was a kind of like a mother to me. And she had left some children, to put it lightly, behind that she had adopted down at a children's home called Casa de Milagros. Long and short, I started the class in the basement of my building to send the money to her children who were left behind, as a way to help heal the grief that I was feeling, which I realized was not even just about that experience, but was really kind of some inherited grief that I was experiencing. But that's really how it started. And then it was like 3 friends, and then 10 friends, and then taught it for almost 2 years in that format, and then gave it a name, the class, because I couldn't think of what to name it. And the class is what it is to you. You can't really, I didn't want to identify it for someone else, what it could be. Rented a kids dance studio 3 days a week, started teaching. Everybody was like, yeah, there's no way you can train anybody to teach this. One by one, Natalie Kuhn, JC Gossett came. We started building. It was a wild ride there. And then almost 3 years ago, I opened my own studio. And it's just really been brick by brick. Here we are. So there's a lot of stories in the stories. I can ramble on for hours,
Yeah.
It's the cliff notes.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I love hearing that. You have 2 girls?
Yep. 2 daughters, Scarlett and Finley.
How old?
10 and 8.
Okay.
They couldn't be more different. It's so adorable to understand the power of nurture and nature real time.
100%.
How about you? How many kids do you have?
We have 3. Kai is 9.5, almost 10 in August. And then Leo is 7.5, almost 8 in July. And then baby Noah, so 2 boys first. And then we just had baby Noah. She'll be 2 in June.
Oh.
So 3 now.
That wasn't an accident.
It wasn't an accident. I always wanted a third.
But I hear that sometimes a third. They're like, oh no, we wanted it. Or like, whoops. So
I wanted a girl.
Yeah.
I was really called for my own healing. I really didn't want a girl for a long time. And I was blessed with 2 boys and wasn't ready to deal with the stuff. I was super young. I got pregnant at 25, 26, had my first baby. And I wasn't ready to look at that, my relationship with my mom and that healing. So it was a blessing to not have a girl for the first 2. And then 5 years later, got pregnant with Noah and I was ready. I was like, I'm ready to look at this and heal that relationship. And I mean, some of the biggest things personally that I've healed from disordered eating to disordered thinking to, self-sabotage, like so many things I have healed during those pregnancies. And just by being pregnant, by just the miracle of being pregnant and holding life in your body. Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you say that. I got goosebumps like 3 different times because it really is, if people understand the soul embodied in the physical form, like that soul will come through you, and it sounds like that's what was happening. And I have 2 girls and I had a sister, and my girls are the same age. I have a sister, Brittany. And I also had a very difficult relationship with my mom, mostly because she has all the inherited pain that she's not looked at, and so I feel compassion around the fact that she wasn't able to work through that, but it filters down. So I had 2 girls, and I think being pregnant was not that experience for me. It's actually been raising them, because I can now see these 2 girls and I can see my sister and I'm able to have a different relationship with myself by talking to myself inside the way that I would talk to my girls.
Yeah.
And I realize now how dysfunctional my upbringing was, because I'm realizing through acting in a different way and understanding the impact that you have. So,
I'm just nodding. You guys can't see us, but I'm just nodding my head like a bob head. I can't stop, because it's just truly in parenting is where we learn, yes, through pregnancy, it's so healing. And I think the veil is just thinner during pregnancy. I felt I was really sick during my pregnancies. And I think that when you're sick, the veil is thinner. And then on top of it, carrying life in your body and feeling those sensations and the energy of a spirit coming through and the unknown, and then actually having a human being that you're responsible for. And unlearning, relearning all that we have been through, re-experiencing childhood through their eyes. And I mean, I'm brought to tears regularly. Just think, like, I walk out of their room at bedtime and I'm like, God, I am so grateful that I am giving them the life that I wanted as a kid. I wanted consistency. I wanted a healthy mom that I knew which version I was going to get. My mom's borderline. So I never knew the version I was going to get from her. And it was really disorienting and really inconsistent. And sometimes she'd be yelling, and sometimes she'd be the sweetest thing ever. And sometimes she loved me, and sometimes she hated us, it felt like. And I am so grateful to be able to give my children a different experience where they can really thrive and have just we are definitely so privileged. And during this time in the world, I'm noticing that privilege more than ever. And just that we can even shape, our moms did the best they could given what they had. And we're so, we're doing things differently. We're choosing to look at things differently.
What's interesting about that, because I had a really pivotal moment about 2 years ago for myself, because I would have the same dialogue around, they did the best they can. And, you almost just push it into the back burner because it's true. But what I was trying to do is figure out a home for that kind of thing. And yes, giving my children, what I I didn't have and all that kind of stuff is like, I guess I even considered it in that vein. It more feels like I'm actually making a huge pattern interruption of like the forward of how they will then parent, so it feels like it's that's why I think that there's a lot of grief that I was saying that I was feeling earlier. I had to, the moment for me that really shifted my ability to heal my relationship was that I wasn't moving into a place of trying to fix anything or think that she was right or wrong. It was that I had to grieve that I never had a mother.
Yeah.
And when I finally did that, and I mean mother in the sense of what I feel like a maternal figure would be or should be, a safe space in your own psyche and spirit. So that really, it shifted things for me. And I have a much more beautiful relationship with her these days, So you have to do the inside job first. I had to disconnect for a couple of years to do that work, and then I re-engaged.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's so funny. We have such parallel lives. Same thing after I had my second Leo, who's now 7.5. Some things went on. I didn't feel safe having her around them. She's actually on the East Coast. She's in Maryland and I'm here in LA. So, but even emotionally, I could not do that anymore. Being a mother, I wasn't enough space. I had to just kind of get quiet. And so created a hard boundary and didn't talk for a few years. And then slowly over time, after doing the work, I slowly started letting her back in. And I'm asked a lot about this. And, I think this is the perfect time. It just feels like that's what's happening here. So I'll share a little bit more, but basically felt called to put up a hard boundary for my own safety so that I could properly parent for the first time in my life, since I wasn't an example by my mother or my father. I had to figure that out. My husband was working all the time. So it was really a solo journey and it was beautiful. I didn't have a lot of displays of how to do it. And I was one of the youngest ones in my group. I didn't have any friends even to display that. So and then a couple years later, I started to feel like I'd gone through enough of the work and the digging and the reflecting and the processing and therapy. And she came through in like different types of medicines and travels. And I finally realized, like, I think for my own peace of mind, I had to think she did the best she could given the circumstances, but we all just tell ourselves the stories we need to hear. Mm-hmm. And I'm allowed to have boundaries. I'm a mom and these are my children and I'm allowed to feel safe and I'm expected to help them feel safe. So for them, it's okay to have boundaries. So I would go back to the East Coast for like summer vacation and say like, I can see you from 10 to 12 on Saturday while I'm there. And she would come, and even like that felt weird. I don't want to have those boundaries. I am a giver, a lover. I am open arms in the relationships in my life, but I had been trampled over so many times that I couldn't trust it anymore. And we had to start fresh.
Yeah.
So it felt really good. And now we talk a few times a month. She came out to LA over the holidays and stayed in my house, my home, my rules for 5 days with my brother. Huge move, huge test. And we not only survived, we thrived. It was, the normal triggers didn't take me there. I didn't get dark. I didn't want to kick around on the street. I just was like, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. And I don't actually have to take it on as my responsibility to tell you how to be or what to do or how it hurts. Yeah. I had the same
you get to leave.
In August, I didn't see my mom in 3 years. And she came out for the same thing, 5 days. And, at the end of the 5 days, I was like, okay, we can wait a while until we do that again. But it was a beautiful thing, And so what we're really talking about when people are like, what is the class? Like, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about moving the physical body to get this gunk that is conditioned and coded in our systems out of our body while we are reflecting on our own response to feeling and then deciding if we want to express it in a safe space, right? So that way you can, like for me, I hear the word boundary and it's the same thing. I've had my mother has the same issue or I don't know what it's named under, but I never knew what I was going to get. And I understand why, because of the work that I've done. But regardless, it's that If it goes unexpressed and it becomes repressed, then we're just going to recondition it because we're trying to give it a space to work itself out on someone else, right? So we go into the class and we notice our relationship to feeling. If the word boundary creates the feeling of shame or guilt, let's bring the shame or guilt up and let's place a rage against the machine and say, ah! Get it out of the physical body. And, there's the specific design of how we work the physical system and then the mental, emotional, and the spiritual. But that's a much longer conversation. But that's in essence what it is.
Yeah.
So when you then do re-engage with these things, there's enough space in your physical, mental, and psyche to pause before you go back into reaction, repatterning,
Yeah. And I just think, like, again, I teach, so I don't ever even know what to call it, but I just call it intuitive movement now because I don't know how. I'm like, it's a vinyasa flow, but with a spiritual, and I'm like, okay, we'll just call it intuitive movement. But yeah, for me, it's the same thing. It's an embodiment. It's like, it's what comes through. It's what I'm needing to look at. It's what I don't want to sit in. Like, if a pose is uncomfortable, like, I'm going to sit in it longer. I'm not going to say I don't want to do that and shy away. And it's just like everywhere you go, there you are. It's the same thing. And in a 45-minute, 1 hour class, 20 minutes, you can really show up when you are embodying that. You're embodying, yes, like your body, you're becoming one with your body, but I would say it's even an embodiment of like spirituality. It's everything coming together. Mind, body, soul, spirit, psychology, like all of it is becoming present in that moment. So whatever it is that you're dealing with, wherever you go, there you are. If you've got some issues and some stuff with a friend or your mom or your child or your husband, it's all going to come up then if you're being present to what's in your body and what you're feeling. So same idea. And I can't wait to take your class more. And I hope you can take my class one day. I'm doing some virtual classes now as we do. But I think really, I want to talk about some tangible tools and practices that we can share for anyone listening who wants to become more embodied in their physical practice, in their physical body, and kind of unite these points of spiritual, emotional, because there's working out for anyone that's listening. There's working out and there's working in. There's working out while you're working in. And there's a difference. And really picking and choosing your time wisely in terms of how you show up. Because I don't want to just show up and be part of an ab class. That doesn't interest me. I also don't have the luxury of time to just go sit in an ab class. If I am going to do an embodiment practice and I'm going to do a physical practice, I want to work in too, because that's where you can really show up. That's where the feelings and the emotions and the dirty stuff and the yucky stuff, that's where you can really look at it. And even more so, what I love that you do is that pattern interruption. Like for me, I imagine just sitting in a chair pose, hating it, and wanting to just back up and get away because it's uncomfortable. So it's an exact example. Take yourself into a pose you just despise, like chair pose. So a lunge or a squat. So arms up above your head, sit down deep in a chair pose, squatting down nice and deep, and do like little tiny pulses and just stay there for the entirety of a song. And that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like what comes up? What do you feel?
Well, and that's the thing. It's what comes up and what we talk about in class. And it sounds like it's similar to what you're experiencing through, a chair pose is you're tolerating a feeling because you're choosing to tolerate the feeling. So you're training yourself to tolerate it and then move into a space of listening, a deeper conversation with yourself around your ability. Fill in the blank, and you practice it somatically. So it stays with you. It is you. It's done through you,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And knowing that like the way that you're showing up in class, not in any way in terms of like physical strength. Of course, if you're having like a day where you need to be easy on yourself, do that. But really recognizing like, am I being present right now? Am I kind of like letting my mind wander, like, no, let me just focus on this class for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour, whatever it is I commit to, and see what comes up. Keep a journal by the side. I don't know if you encourage that, but I feel like I get the best revelations and observations in a class.
Yeah, we recommend journals all the time. It's like part of our like kit. It's put it next to anything you do. And for me, you know, the idea of getting embodied, like I think a lot of times what people, they're like, what does that mean? It's like, it means you are in your body. Mm-hmm. And if you want to just even distill it down and simplify it more, it means you're not in your head, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can be in your head and in your body. And that's the thing, what you were saying about, I'm going to commit to not having, you know, checking out or whatever. The thing is you can commit to it. It's going to happen, right? And what we're doing is we're shortening the rate of return for how long we go into this long experience of some dialogue, believing something somebody said, and it's triggering our thing, and it's opening up the thing, and we're going to repeat it, believe it, and repeat it. And then it digs into your subconscious, and then it becomes part of your behavior. So catch it early. If you get, you know, somebody brings something up in you, and you know you're in a triggered state, figure out what that feels like for you. Where do you feel it in your body? For me, I immediately go to my head. I get a feeling right underneath my diaphragm, and my fingers get hot. So there's a physical response, and I believe we all have it. Some people just don't know what theirs is. And when it comes up, boom, alarm sign. I immediately will say, I need to. I'm going to walk out for a minute with no like whatever, no charge, not like I'm out of here, you know, but just like. And I'll put my hands on my body and I'll breathe long enough. Maybe I need 5 minutes. Sometimes I'll go and I'll write all of the things I want to say and like jam my pen in the thing and get it out. And then that way, the part of you that's like, no, this person doesn't hear me, like go ahead and write it. And then when you re-engage, it's without a combative, aggressive, because you've cleaned it. You know, so notice when you feel triggered about something. If it's in your yoga class, if it's in your home life, if it's the way you text, right? Notice the response in your body and then form a relationship around it to stabilize yourself long enough to get back into the frontal cortex so you can make proper decisions and you're not just like acting in a triggered state, you know?
Right.
Me, that's
right. You don't want to be in constant fight or flight and then you're just like out of your body. Fight or flight just means it's just a natural response to whatever thing, trauma, stress is being thrown your way. You just run or you fight. And it's just an automatic response. We're trying to get away from the automatic response being fleeing or fighting, right? Like you said, like having a charge and responding in that way. Like that's not always the correct way. Most of the time, we shouldn't be responding in that way because then it just activates the other person and back and forth. And you're not even speaking to the heart of the meat of what really needs to be discussed here, which is,
well, because you're not,
yeah.
Because you're in your head and you're in a combative state. And this doesn't mean like go ahead and be like a big mush ball in the corner and just like have your hands in your heart and breathe and think that the world is going to operate. You know, but it does mean that you can take responsibility for your relationships. You can clean up your side of the street and then lead by example. You know, I'm so exhausted with the ideas that come through of people being like, and I'm going to this and I'm going to that. It's like, you actually, that's beautiful. And if you're sharing because you want to imprint it in your own psyche and be like, but if people just talk about like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to follow this thing, and they don't actually do it, just be the thing that you are, right? Be your practice. Like, you don't need to go and tell somebody that you've done all this work. Just be the embodiment of the work and then watch all of your relationships change because they can feel it. That's the thing about humans. We feel
energy.
You feel when people are connected to a different source of themselves other than like just trying to get people to like them or just getting, you know, whatever it is, you can feel it.
Yeah. And I do think it's just fascinating. And what I would love for you listening right now is to connect that pattern interruption, the same thing we were talking about with our mothers earlier. And we interrupted the normal patterning that we had for decades with that dynamic. And, you know, it's hard to be your mother's daughter when you have your own children. Then you're like, I'm no longer that little girl. Like there should be a reset button. In our society, we don't have a reset button. We don't have a thing, a milestone, you know, I mean, in the Jewish religion, definitely around 12, 13. But still, it's like confusing. Like all of a sudden I'm an adult now and like, you're still treating me the same way, but I'm different now. And now I'm having my own children. And like, are we going to talk about this? And we never did. My mom never did. And really this pattern interruption, it's scary. It's scary to do things differently. And I of all people, like for so long would run away from change. Yes, run away from change because it's scary. But now, after I don't know how long I've been doing this, I actually look forward to that feeling. I look forward to interrupting and to feeling that little bit. It's uneasy and it's uncomfortable, but I know I'm on my way to growth. So I look forward to it. I say all the time, I love fighting with my husband because I know and I trust on the other side of that argument, on the other side of that difficulty and that insecurity, and I know he's my person and I'm his person and we're in this and we're going to fight for it. So there's trust, there's safety, there's security. So we can go there.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that argument, that whatever it is love, is even closer of a relationship than we've ever had before. And now I can trust that. With my mom, I couldn't trust that because it was too everywhere. It was all over the place and I couldn't trust the stability.
Well, that's the thing about two people that are doing the work. And that's where the boundary comes in. You have to know what you're engaging with to understand what the boundary looks like and when to open and when to close it. You can go there because you're both doing the work. And that's also where like the EI comes in, like your own emotional intelligence around understanding what that is. And like, don't go in with the intention to think that you are going to change anyone. Look at how hard it is to change your own behavior. Just thinking that you're going to wag a finger at somebody and they're going to shift something so it makes you more comfortable. Like this is an inside job. And that idea of, that we work with that pattern interruption is simply, it just starts for us, at least in the line of work that I do. It starts with simply noticing that you're there. Step 1, awareness that it has happened. Step 2, get in your body, engage your breath. Hang out there long enough until you feel release or relief. If it supports you, place your hands on your body so you could feel your physical home where you live and understand that you are safe, and then begin. Right? So for me, that's been my work. And I think it sounds very similar to you because it sounds like we had similar mothers. So, the relationship with what it feels like to have unconditional love that's and like that's what we're taught is unconditional love, which is actually very conditional, so
100%.
yeah. And I've always had a really hard time, like people, like if anybody thinks of the class or the work of the class, it's a heart-centered practice. I don't know what people think actually. They probably think a billion things, who knows even, but that it's like this very like self-love and like all this, like, no, like I have such an uncomfortable relationship with that word self-love, and I am dissecting it, and I'm not even close to the node of why I still have such self-loathing, and it's getting there and I'm closer, but I know that unwinding that cobweb takes consistency and practice and discipline and ability to just be angry and like bring it to the room and to the class and just, I don't say it, but and I leave and I feel better. And I know that,
Yeah, it's cathartic. Every class is then a process of moving through. It's moving through the habits, moving through the desire to run away from anything uncomfortable. And if ever we're being forced to be sitting in what is uncomfortable, it's the current moment in the world right now. Like I was thinking the other day, I was like, is there anywhere we could go? Like, let's just say a private airplane landed on my, rooftop tomorrow. Like, where would we tell them to take us? There's nowhere. There's no escape right now. There's nowhere to go. Like, that's a crazy thought. Like, we just have to sit in it, sit in our homes,
It's if you really consider what's happening, it's much bigger than anybody could ever understand, because
Totally.
we're being asked to go inside in the most real way, and it is I get goosebumps talking about it. Yeah. It is a higher power at play in many ways, because I think we've really abused the earth, we've abused one another, we have taken advantage of things, we've taken things for granted. People are living from a place of scarcity and ego and greed. And I at least believe in my own self that what's going on is because it's enough. Go inside and like, that's it.
Yep.
When we reemerge, if we're not having another conversation, I would be shocked, you know?
Yeah.
But we have to do work when we're inside, you know?
And we're not there yet. And that's why there is no end in sight. For now, there is no end in sight. And that is frightening for people. And we do want to let you know that you're not alone, that we get it, that it's scary, it's uncomfortable, and that this is exactly the work you should be doing. And this podcast is exactly the vibration that you want to tune into in terms of what is going on in the world. Because what is going on in the world is what is going on in our homes. And what is going on in our homes is what's going on internally in our bodies and in our relationships. And it's time to go into the deepness, the darkness, the shadow, and recognize that healing isn't cute, like we said in the beginning, that, think about what that looks like, and that it's a purging, it's a clearing out. It's like spring cleaning, but Groundhog's Day, every day right now. Let it not be a Groundhog's Day. Let it be a time of uncovering the next thing that it is, and taking breaks and recognizing that, this is exhausting work and that it isn't cute, but it's necessary. And our whole society needs to be doing this work right now.
And this is just to like give a little context to this conversation, at least what I feel into it. Like, we're specifically talking about the human psyche, heart, and soul. Like, there's some real wreckage and casualties that are going on right now, not just in the actual human souls leaving the earth, but like jobs and businesses and people's lives getting crushed and losing family members, and like the problems in the people that are running and the confusion, and like, so let's just put that into a sidecar. So like, we make sure that we're tuned into the fact that what we're discussing now is about the work that one is doing within themselves while we're experiencing this. Because, sometimes I think if we don't give context to things, people want to like fight about why, and like, but you're not this, and like, it's this, that's not what we're discussing, So
bigger picture discussion here, which can carry into the next several years of your life. Like, what's coming up now, pay attention to that. Pay attention to where you want to run, journal about it, take a class. And I heard you talking in a class recently about low vibration. So I just want to talk about that before we hit up our 5 questions that we ask everyone. So really quickly, you were just talking about low vibration of thoughts, and I talk about low vibe thinking all the time. So I just want to I loved the way you described it, and you were just like, it's quantum physics.
Yeah.
You said, yeah.
That's the thing that I always do, because I'm a skeptical human being. Like, all of these practices that I share, fill in the blank, whatever it is, not just movement, but is because I've used myself as my own case study and practiced and decided if it felt like it resonated. So I know that when early stages of me tuning into this stuff, I could feel it. But if people would talk about vibration, like be high vibe, I'd be like, what, and this is like,
what does that even mean?
Or it just goes in one ear and out the other. It's like when you hear mind, body, spirit now, it's like great, or like consciousness, great. But nobody takes the pause around like what it actually means. So I like to toggle the idea of like, we're talking about a lower vibrational energy, right? A lower vibrational energy is something that doesn't have a lot of current in it. Like, think quantum physics. So you can put it in a scientific bucket, what we're talking about in the way of when somebody says low vibrational, for all the skeptic scientists out there, right? People are studying vibrational qualities of things in ways where they still can't actually see the thing, but they can, through this crazy quantum physics, somehow track through like light and all of, So it's the same thing. A low vibrational thought is one of the lower mind. It's one that's heavier. It draws things down. If you think about what things like depression and heavy energies that are not grounded, they're low vibrational. They're shame and guilt and fear and, and a higher vibrational, something that has a little bit more Shakti to it. And somebody walks into the room and they have a higher vibration. You can feel them when they walk in, like that person's here there, and the way they speak and their words, and they talk about love and light in the body and heart and connection and the humanness and tenderness and ferocity and grace and all these things. Like there's a different vibration to it, right? So that's what we're looking to be aware of, what the vibration of the thought is. Notice your thought, and then what is the quality of that thought? Is it lower or higher vibrational? So that's a good kind of touch point that I work with all the time in class. Notice the quality of the thought, and then notice if it's lower or high vibrational, and then be aware of your ability to change and interrupt thought simply by changing and interrupting thought. And
exactly. And I think just a lot of times we talk about and we see, on social media, on the internet, we see all like high vibe living. Well, like it all starts with the thoughts. So you can eat all the healthy food, you can do all the cleanses, you can drink all the juice. But at the end of the day, if you're not thinking high vibe thoughts and you aren't treating people well and living your life from that place, it doesn't matter what you're eating and doing because it's all void. It really is. You can eat this amazing food all day and organic and have 4 juices a day. But if you're not thinking helpful thoughts and raising your consciousness.
Yeah. I mean, it goes 2 ways, though. It goes 2 ways. Like, for me, I think that you really do have to take care of your physical body with. In order to even get to a place where your head is clear enough to be aware that you're even having the thing. So you do, it's not like
they go hand in hand.
Yeah. And you're not looking for like one to replace the other. I think that what happens sometimes is people just think things are their physical practice, or they'll go on a diet, or they'll whatever. And then they start to feel better. And then it moves them into the next thing and the next thing, right? But the idea is to keep going in that evolutionary process, right? So you eat Burger King, stop eating Burger King and eat a hamburger from wherever, and then like slowly see how and then get some grass-fed beef, and then notice if you feel better if you just eat a salad. Like it's a slow kind of build, or you can rip the Band-Aid, which is kind of how I like to do things. Just breathe as you feel it. But anyway, so that's that. Cool.
So we could go on forever. I'm just gonna close our the 2 of us could just continuously go on and on and on. But we have 5 questions that we ask every guest. And people love this part. So first thing that comes to mind, what is the best?
I'm a little bit nervous.
I know. No one ever does. It's super cash. So just the best advice that you've ever received.
Oh my gosh.
Take your time. We can edit.
Actually, there's so many things that want to come through, because there's the kind of CEO business part of me that wants to say something, and then there's the mother part of me that wants to say something, and then I'll say, God, there's so many things I want to say. I'll say in the business world, when you're thinking solely about business, and to mind you, we are in a mission-based company, so I took me a long time to feel comfortable enough actually making a business out of it. And I still, feel very strongly about that. The work is important enough to do that. But was hire slow, fire fast. And that is a thing to do when you're empathic and you have a female founded, run, all female company where you end up in relationships for longer than you should be. And I don't necessarily mean that that's happened to me or has or not, but I'm just saying that that's good, clean business advice. Take your time to hire. And when you see that there's something in the mix that's either a cancer, or call it what you will, to just make a clean sweep. And it's just the silly phrase that I always just use is, this too shall pass. All of it. It's just like, even the 2 minutes ago, it's gone, it's like, so, and breathe as you feel it.
Love that. Thank you. What about one of your proudest moments to date?
Absolutely becoming a mom, and it's hard because I have 2 kids, but I do know that moment that my first daughter came out. I didn't know what I was having with either. And I pulled her up and I was just yelled, "It's a little girl!" And I don't know, like my entire life changed in a way that you can't describe unless you've experienced it. And, it's, she had an umbilical cord that was like hanging when I was pulling her up. So I thought it was a boy for like a moment. So, and then my little second one, Finley, she's a little firecracker. She came out like, my midwife was like smacking her, like, "Can you get her to cough?" And she was just like, "I'm all set." So she had a much like cooler cat kind of entry, and same feeling, just like, wow, this is, so I'd say one and one.
It's profound. My mother-in-law, my husband's Israeli, and when we had our first Kai almost 10 years ago now, she wrote him just one text after Kai was here. And she said, "Now you know how much we love you."
No.
Like you can't know until it happens. And then you're like, "Oh, now I know now I get it."
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. On the flip side, what's been your hardest moment or one of your hardest moments?
There's so many of them that I couldn't even share, honestly.
Yeah.
I've had a really long go for the past decade, 41 years actually, but not, and in beautiful ways and in really painful ways. Some of the hardest moments in life, I think, are watching somebody that you love deeply suffer,
Totally.
So that's one. And, some that I actually am not ready to share yet.
Yeah. You don't have to. It's your choice. Totally. What about your self-care rituals? So obviously you are an embodiment for so many people of what their self-care rituals are. But what do you do? It doesn't even have to be being active. Like,
it's so funny because, people will do they'll ask me that question a lot. And like, if somebody wants, to do a blog or an interview or something. And I always laugh at my answers because I'm like, I sound like such a wellness person. And like, it sounds like I'm trying to make it up. And like, I'll just tell you the truth. And I was laughing the other day, like, I guess I have. So every morning I wake up, I do warm water, lemon, turmeric, cayenne, a huge jug of it on an empty stomach with a probiotic. And I do a bunch of rounds of Uddiyana Bandha. I don't know, maybe people know what that is, just to get my whole digestive system going. I will put a face mask on, wash my face, brush my teeth, not wash my face. And then I'll get my kids ready. And then I'll meditate and then get them out the door. Or Yaya, who's their nanny, who's everything in this world. She's been with us for 10 years and literally helped create the class because she's been my other mother to me as well. Anyway, so I'll bring them, she'll bring them, and then it's off to the day. And then the evenings are a bit of the unwind, which is always take a shower or bath before bed. Like, you have to wash the day off. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, if you don't wash your hair, that's fine. But if you can wash at least water on your head. And I'll do like a 30-minute no phone before bed, read, legs up the wall. I'll do a short meditation in bed. And for me, that evening meditation, even if you use in the afternoon, especially if you're a mom, like, step out of the room for 5 minutes, close your eyes and just shut down for a few minutes. Yeah. Super important and healthy, I think. And then, huge, just like, I have a biomat and a chi machine. I have all these gadgets I've collected through the years, and I've set up like a self-care station. So I like lay on the biomat on the chi machine, and I have like a light mask thing, and, just things where you get to close your eyes and have no distractions. So that's kind of the setup I have there. And then I do a lot of the class. I love going into infrared saunas. I love doing cryotherapy. Just all the things that people do. I mean, I don't drink green juice. I don't like, I eat whole foods. I don't have anything against green juice, but like, I don't have any of those things. I enjoy I enjoy some tequila, which I call serum, with my girlfriends sometimes. And I think that properly placed in the right amounts of things, is good little medicine too sometimes, if you know how to use it wisely.
Absolutely.
And water.
Yep. Balancing it all. And it's funny, the self-care stuff, like as a mom, like you can't understand how badly you need, like, I just want to be alone. That's my self-care. And then the magic just drops through. Like,
yeah,
I didn't even realize, because I'm home all the time right now. I haven't left my house in 3 weeks. So, and I'm a homebody. I'm a Taurus. I'm a double Taurus with like Virgo rising. Like I am earth. I'm thriving being at home, but the kids don't leave either now. So I was by myself for 1 hour last night. I just moved my body intuitively, lit some candles, listened to some music, and journaled. And I was like,
yeah,
there I am.
Yeah.
There I am. I can't breathe deeply when the kids are in the room. And parents who homeschool, like, you are amazing.
Oh.
I need my alone time. A lot of it.
Yeah. I've never been the one that needs alone time. It's been more recent that I've realized. And I think the reason why, like, I've always been the girl that likes to get huge, big potlucks together for years, and like Friday night, and like bring all your stuff, because I don't really know how to cook other than like wrap things in seaweed. And it's like always. So the fact that I was having these signals in my body recently that I really wanted alone time is a new thing for me, and I've just been practicing being alone. So it's an active aloneness. It's not like I feel lonely, and necessary just to recenter, get back into your midline. And then, like, kids are tough, it's like naggy and nutty, and they're doing things, and it's like you're just in your mind because you're in execution mode. It's not, or like I'm crawling my arms like in a minute, but
it's a lot. It's funny that we have a toddler now to throw in the mix, because we're kind of out of that phase. Like, you have older ones, like, yes, they need, but it's more of like a cerebral need. It's less of like, the baby is just like on me, and I'm not breastfeeding anymore, but it's just like that constant pulling and on my body. And I'm just like, I just need get off my body. Like, everyone get away.
I'll say
everyone just get away.
When I come home from work, I'll be like, team, I just need to let you know, I don't have a lot of capacity right now. Please don't touch me. I'll like hug them. But it's like the elbowing when they're eating at the table, and then the nudging the other thing. And then like, just the stimulation.
Sitting on your lap and like,
don't touch me.
I love you, and give me a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, this podcast is called Ignited. What ignites you?
Definitely the class. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And do you always take class while you teach? Like, are you always?
Yeah, I usually do.
Me too.
Yeah. I usually do. I mean, it's interesting what's happened with the digital now, because when you're managing all the humans in the room and synthesizing the room and getting everybody on cue, you're only cueing the whole time. And then the last portion of class, people go there. But like, now that it's just me and I don't have anybody else's fields to like drop in, it's just like downloads. So it's interesting how it's changed shape, the way that the teaching has evolved. And I didn't used to do the entire class. I would drop in because I had to get into the room before, and now it's like just opens up. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to meet you in this way, and I'm a huge fan, and I will continue to spread. If you want to, maybe we'll get a link for everyone to maybe get a trial. Aren't you doing a 2-week free trial right now?
Yeah. If you just go to theclass.com, it's probably the first thing that comes up is like stream the class.
Perfect. Thank you. Have an amazing rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.